Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. First and foremost, got to get this out of the way. Sorry, my face is a little red, guys. Spent the entire afternoon outside officiating one of the sports that I am a sports official for. So I'm a little red, but the good news is, out of all of this, is of course the Iowa Hawkeyes picked up a much, much, much needed quad one victory over the Wisconsin Badgers. It's always sweet when it's one of those schools, the Wisconsins, the Minnesotas, so on and so on. Illinois, I would put in there as well. So Nebraska. So that is the main point that I want to drive home in this video is there is still hope for the Iowa Hawkeyes to make the NCAA tournament. In my last video that I did, since then, Iowa has suffered one loss to Maryland. It was not the best loss. It was a very winnable game. But I discussed even before that in my last video, the fact that the Iowa Hawkeyes really struggle to have a closer and to close games out. That is the Achilles heel of this men's basketball team, whether it be getting stops on the defensive side, whether it be having somebody on the offensive side that wants the ball, and in those clutch moments, the time frame that I would say is crunch time would be with about 5 minutes to go in the game, 5 to 7 minutes to go in the game. Sometimes it has been Peyton Sandfort at times, but of course, as you guys well know, Peyton Sandfort is an extremely streaky shooter. So it's unfortunately not always him, and he has not gotten to a point yet in his bag, in his offensive bag, his offensive repertoire. He has not gotten to a point where if his jump shot is not falling, he can go to other means, other tools in his bag to chip in some points. At times, it's been Tony Perkins. And Tony Perkins has been very aggressive and gotten to the rim and scored and been that clutch guy for the Iowa Hawkeyes. But unfortunately, far too often, Ben Krikke has been one of the top scorers for the Iowa Hawkeyes, at one time the top scorer for the Iowa Hawkeyes, but he has never really been the go-to clutch final 5 to 7 minutes, go and get a basket. The Iowa Hawkeyes need a bucket, need a couple buckets. Let's get it to Ben Krikke, aka Ben Krikke. That has not always been the case, unfortunately. So the bottom line is Iowa has dropped a few games this year sheerly out of not being able to get it done in crunch time. And to tell you guys the truth, Iowa almost did it again today. I mean, I also want to talk about the Maryland loss that Iowa suffered. Guys, Iowa was completely in control of that game. And then with about 10 minutes to go in the game, Iowa just crumbled. They failed to make shots. Now, it was pretty much the entirety of the second half that this was the case, or most of it. But it really started to be the case in the final 10 minutes of the game. And Iowa ended up losing a game that they were totally in control of by double digits or close to double digits. I mean, I had never seen anything like it. When I was rewatching the game, the highlights, the game was solely and unequivocally in the hands of the Iowa Hawkeyes. But that is why, as Charles Barkley or as Kenny Smith would say, you got to run through the tape. You got to run through the finish line. So That has been the Achilles heel for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Obviously, they struggled defensively at times, if not often. They are an average to below average defensive team, but and it almost happened again against Wisconsin. Iowa was up by as many as 9 points with less than 10 minutes to go in the second half. They were playing extremely well before then, especially at the beginning portion of the second half, and they very well almost dropped it. They almost gave this game away to the Wisconsin Badgers. There was a missed shot, and a Wisconsin player streaked down the court for a wide open layup. Tony Perkins dang near had one of the best blocks I've ever seen in my life. He is very athletic. Okay, guys, very athletic. He almost had one of the best blocks I have ever seen, but it was goaltending. It did already hit. It was either already coming down or hit the rim. It was kind of hard to see from video angle, from our angle, because it was bang bang, and really only the officials could get a good look at that. But very nearly lost this game and gave this game to Wisconsin after being up by as many as 9 points. Tony Perkins saved the Iowa Hawkeyes with a spectacular basket at the rim. Great play by Fran McCaffrey, a little rub action. Tony Perkins came off the curl, off of that rub action into a curl, and was able to get an in between two defenders kind of scoop around layup. Really, really nice play by him. He has had an excellent year, and he has become the guy that I always knew he could become if he chose to do so. At the beginning of the year, when I did my Iowa basketball preseason video, I said that Tony Perkins, I thought that Tony Perkins was going to be the number one guy, him or Ben Krikke. And that it could be Tony Perkins, but based off of what we had seen and been told, it was looking more like it was going to be Krikke. But in sports, things have a way of working themselves out, especially amongst uh, one another as teammates. And Tony Perkins has definitely taken this team over. People have asked me, so I'm going to pull up the box score for the Iowa versus Wisconsin game here in a moment. People have asked me if I think Tony Perkins can play in the NBA. So the one drawback that Tony Perkins still has is he is not an above average jump shooter. He, especially from 3-point range, his mid-range game is not bad. He is probably average to maybe slightly above average for a guard in the mid-range game. But the issue with that is that if that is going to be your main your focal point when it comes to jump shooting, you have to be better than just slightly above average. You have to be a knockdown mid-range shooter, an elite mid-range shooter. And we've seen Rick Hamilton, aka Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups, Colby Bryant. I mean, there's tons of guys that have Michael Jordan who have been excellent mid-range shooters. Usually, Allen Iverson was an excellent mid-range shooter. We have seen it before, and when it's done at that level, it is truly mesmerizing to see the work that they're able to do within the 3-point line, but outside of the block, for lack of a better term, or the key. So he's gotten better, and he's not a bad shooter. I wouldn't say he's a bad 3-point shooter. He's just not there yet. He needs to definitely improve his 3-point shooting, especially the NBA has become such really basketball in general, but definitely the NBA has become such a spread out 3-point shooting league that it is such a focal point that Tony Perkins would either like I said, have to become an elite mid-range shooter, or he needs to just improve his three-point shot shooting. He doesn't have bad form or anything like that. It's maybe it's a confidence thing. I don't know. Either way, when it comes to the actual game, he needs his percentage to improve. And I'll pull up his stats here in a moment. Matter of fact, let's just do it right now. But other than that, I think Tony Perkins has excellent size for the point guard position, and I think he would actually add some valuable versatility. He's a good defender. He at the NBA level, he could probably play point guard slash off guard in certain lineups. But he would primarily need to be a point guard. And we have seen him take a big step forward in that regard at the point guard position. So at the NBA level, that would be his primary position, is the point guard, because he's not tall enough or a good enough shooter yet to be a consistently played two guard in the NBA. Other than that, that's probably his biggest issue. He obviously needs to continue to improve his pure point guard skills, and he needs to continue to limit turnovers. But he's a great playmaker. He plays hard. He hustles, and he's aggressive. He gets to the rim. He's definitely athletic enough. That's what I would say. Tony Perkins is definitely athletic enough to play in the NBA. But those are the things that he would have to do to make the improvement. With all of that said, I don't think he will get drafted. Maybe depending on how he tested at the NBA Combine, if he got that invite or some testing event, maybe he could slide into a round 2 pick. But he's more likely an undrafted, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, by the way. Okay, I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's at this point he's more likely to be a undrafted D League player for a couple of years, if that's what he decides to do, rather than go play overseas. But he has a chance, is what I will say. Tony Perkins has a chance, but he does need to improve certain elements of his game. As you guys can see here, he's 6'4", 205 pounds. He's currently averaging 15.4 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, 4.2 assists. Tony Perkins very much reminds me of like a Jason Kidd, bigger guards, point guards that can rebound, that can make plays, that can create open looks, get assists, but he does need to improve his shooting. And that's a continuing thing that I have said about him. He has made slight improvements, but not enough. So this is his career 3-point percentage in college is 32%. That's not good enough. He needs to get that up to, I would say, 35%. Maybe even closer to 40, 30, 37, 38% would definitely be solid. I mean, the best is 40%. If you can be a 40% 3-point shooter, you're lights out. But 36, 37, 38% is not bad either. So he's actually gotten worse each year, probably because he's shooting more 3-point shots. 33%, 32%, 33%, 30% this year from 3-point range. And this year, he's on pace to shoot the most 3-point shots he's shot in his career. Last year, he shot 66 3-point shots. And I think he will definitely hit that this year. Sorry, guys, my nose is super stuffy because of what I said at the beginning of the video. So anyways, all right, let's go to the game, the box score here, and look at Iowa's victory over Wisconsin. Oops, spelt basketball wrong. Come on, NHA, come on. So Iowa, again, guys, and this game was definitely in favor of Iowa. As the commentator said, Wisconsin prefers to play a slowed down tempo, methodical, defend, get stops, limit possessions. Iowa likes it to be up in the 80s. That's their sweet spot, scoring minimum 80 points or higher. If they score 80 points, they have a really good shot of winning the game. But giving up 47 points to Wisconsin is not very good. And as the commentator said, Wisconsin was getting every shot they wanted early in the first half. Iowa won the second half, defended much better, limiting Wisconsin to only 31 points, which was much improved from the first half. Let's go ahead and click here. And then obviously Iowa won the OT. They struggled to contain Stephen Crowell and AJ Storr, who is a transfer from St. John's, I believe. So that's the Chucky Hepburn had a pretty good game, 18 points there. Iowa did a good job of limiting Tyler Wall, but Wisconsin's top players are definitely Crowell, Hepburn, and Storr. They actually have a pretty solid starting five. So I wanted to clarify something, and I might make a separate video on this depending on the outcome of the season. But honestly, guys, so I think that this year, so I think that this year has the chance to be Fran McCaffery's best, but also worst coached year. And this was especially on the best side of things. This was especially true early in the year when I was surveying the landscape of this current Iowa team and what they had lost from last year and so on and so forth. But honestly, guys, looking at the talent that this Iowa team has and looking at some of the losses that Iowa has had, sure, some of the losses are completely understandable to quad one opponents. But some of the losses that they've had against Maryland on the road, even though it is hard to win on the road, let's see, who else did they lose to? Penn State, games like that. Iowa, if they don't make the NCAA tournament, I do think that this will end up being. They almost lost to Minnesota. They had a historic comeback for that victory, losing to Indiana. That was not a good loss this year. You look at those losses and how Iowa lost mainly by not having a closer. And if Iowa is not able to make the NCAA tournament, given the talent that this Iowa team has, I do think that this will actually be one of Fran McCaffery's worst coach seasons because Tony Perkins is playing better than I even anticipated. Krikke has met the criteria for what I said preseason what he would need to hit to be a successful season. Iowa has had very, who could have thought that Owen Freeman was going to have the freshman season that he is having, likely going on to be the freshman of the year in the Big Ten. We've seen Peyton Sandfort having a solid year, albeit inconsistent, but solid. All of these things considered, and you look at the performances that we have gotten from the key players that Iowa has, and they have met, if not exceeded, at least my expectations for what I said needed to be done in order for Iowa to have a good team this year. So if they don't make the NCAA tournament, with all of those things being said, I think that this will be a massively missed opportunity for Fran McCaffrey. Because if you were to tell fans before the year that Tony Perkins was going to average 15 plus points a game, that Krikke was going to be a solid contributor, averaging 14 plus points a game, that Peyton Sandfort was going to take a step forward, that Iowa was going to have that one of their freshmen was going to be a freshman of the year performer in Owen Freeman, and their freshman class as a whole being as solid as it has been this year. I mean, this is looking like one of the best classes that Fran McCaffrey, even though it's not the case in the recruiting rankings, but what we actually see on the court and judging how they have actually done this year as true freshmen as a group, this may end up being one of the better Fran McCaffrey recruiting classes and under the radar recruiting classes in the Big Ten in recent memory. Given all that, if you were to tell fans all that, a majority of Iowa fans would say that Iowa is in the NCAA tournament, no problem. So if Iowa does not make it, I do think that this will be a disappointing season. And things are absolutely hanging on the cusp right now. They are on the brink, but Iowa still has life. They still have breath. This was a much, much, much needed victory. Owen Freeman, 20 points, 12 rebounds, 12 boards, 6 assists. Huge performance from Owen Freeman. Ben Krikke, 4 points. Yeah, I will say, everything I just said is true, and Krikke has had a solid year thus far. But of late, meaning the last 10 games that Iowa has played, Krikke has dropped dramatically. And I don't know if it's him, lack of confidence, or it's just the actual reality of the situation that he is not one of the top 2 players on this Iowa basketball team. I don't know for sure what it is, but judging what he did early in the year to where we've seen him lately in the past 10 games, they're night and day. And it's not to say that he's still not contributing and he's an important piece for the Iowa team. He is, but aside from one game that he chipped in 20 points and Iowa lost, or they may have won that game. I can't remember which game it was, but I know he chipped in 20 points. I think they lost. I think it was to Maryland. Aside from that, this has been the usual box score for Ben Krikke. And I really wish that he just became more, he doesn't have to score 15 plus points. If he became a guaranteed 10-point a night guy, that would help Iowa tremendously. But I think Ben Krikke has struggled mightily with the athleticism of the Big Ten, especially of late. Josh Dix, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. What can I say about Josh Dix, guys? I was right. I said way back when that he was going to be a nice, really nice player for Iowa. He was an excellent get for Iowa in the recruiting class that they landed him. This guy is going to be really nice. He is going to take, barring injury or anything like that, knock on wood, he is going to take a huge step forward. This kid has some real deal potential. And I'm not the only one who sees it. The commentators always comment on it. He is just an all-around baller. He's got a sweet jump shot. He's got great size for the guard position. He defends. He can handle the rock. He is a little bit undersized for a 2 guard, especially in the NBA. But his future is promising. Tony Perkins, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Peyton Sandfort, 18 points in 34 minutes. and those would be the main stats for this game. Brock Harding did chip in a nice 6 points. I'm still very high on him for the future. It's just hard for Iowa to find minutes for him when Tony Perkins has turned into the primary point guard. It's hard to have more than one point guard, especially if the point guard you do have is an all Big Ten caliber point guard. All right, team stats. Iowa shot 52.6% to Wisconsin's 47.6. Iowa did shoot an abysmal 28% from three compared to Wisconsin's 43%. Free throw percentage, Iowa did excellent, shooting 80% compared to Wisconsin's 67.9. Total rebounds 35-32 in favor of Iowa. Assists 20-16 favor Wisconsin. Blocks 6-1 in favor of Iowa. Steals 5-4 leaning Wisconsin, and turnovers 9-7 in Wisconsin's favor. So that is pretty much that, guys. I doubt that the net rankings have been updated. Let's see if Ken Palm probably has, but I doubt that the net rankings have. They usually take at least a day. Let's see. Iowa is 59th. They continue to fall defensively. They are 171st in the country in defensive efficiency and 12th in the country in offensive efficiency. So I'm pretty sure that this has taken into account the win Iowa had over Wisconsin. Yeah, they have them as 15 and 11. Wisconsin is, let's see where Wisconsin is at, 20th in Ken Palm. So let's see if the net rankings have been updated. So very big win, guys. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. So this is, man, this is going to take a while to get all the way down here. Maryland 31st. What? Oh, this has got to be last year's. Yeah, it's last year's. Let's do 2024. Sorry, guys. Bear with me here. So this is so let's see here. Iowa has lost to Purdue twice. They're second in the net rankings. Iowa lost to Iowa State. They are 8th. Iowa lost to Wisconsin and beat them, and they are 20th. This obviously is not updated because it has Wisconsin +1 here. Let's see. Iowa lost to Oklahoma. They are 33rd in the net ranks. Where is Creighton at? Iowa lost to Creighton. They're 18th in the net rankings. Let's see. They beat Nebraska. They're 53rd in the net rankings. This will be a quad 1 game against Northwestern. Iowa is 69th. How Seton Hall is above them and they beat Seton Hall is beyond me, but I don't think net rankings takes into account head to head. But Seton Hall 16-9, not bad. I mean, I want Seton Hall to continue to win because that's that would only help Iowa's cause. So Geez, why? So here's Iowa's 15 and 11, and it's obviously not updated, but 1 and 7 in quad one, 5 and 3 quad two, 3 and 1 in quad three. So see what their net team sheet is. So Iowa did beat Seton Hall, they're 68th. They beat Ohio State, they're 71st. Maryland has jumped a few spots. They are 75th. So it doesn't have Iowa's updated victory over Wisconsin in there. But obviously that was a quad one game, as you guys can see there. They have another quad one game against Michigan State, and I definitely think that's a winnable game for Iowa. And bottom line is, guys, just to wrap this up here, Iowa still has some work to do, guys. I mean, it's not, it is not, they are not in the NCAA tournament by any stretch. Had they beaten Maryland and not lost to them, they probably would be in the tournament right now. But Iowa has had some losses that they, the loss to Michigan early in the year. Those games come back to bite you, especially if you have enough of them. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Iowa has 4 quad one games coming up. As I said, if they can win it, and this was including the Wisconsin game, if they can win minimum 2 of those quad one games, so they have one more. If they can win one more, they'll be in good shape. The problem is that, let's just say hypothetically, so Iowa's 15-11, and let's say they win that game and they win the quad 3 game against Penn State. That will put them at 17 wins. Okay. But they lose 3 of the quad 1 games. That will put them at 17-14. I don't think it'll be quite enough. They will still have a lot of work to do in the Big Ten tournament. If they can get 2 more quad 1 victories in the remaining 4 that they have, and we're working with 18, and so let's see. So 15, 16, 17, 18, and they finish 18-13, I think they would be in the NCAA tournament. That's 2 more quad wins versus 1 quad win. It literally, I know it doesn't seem like it would, but it would make all the difference in the world. So that's where we're at, guys. Iowa still has some work to do, but it is attainable. I think the most winnable games that Iowa has is, honestly, I think it's the road game against Michigan State and the road game against Northwestern. I hate to say it, guys, but Iowa just does not play Illinois very well. Not since Illinois has had Brad Underwood. Um, you know, but it is at home, the very last game, and it's going to be a packed game. It's possible. Okay, it's definitely possible. I'm not saying that that's not a winnable game. It is, and obviously, it does. If you want to break this down even further, it does depend on which quad 1 victory they have. If Iowa picks up 2 more quad victories and it's Northwestern and Michigan State, well, that would not be as good as Iowa defeating Illinois twice and losing, picking up 2 wins against a top 15 quad team would be even better. But at the end of the day, all that matters is it a quad 1 victory or not? And so with that said, I really do think the most winnable games are the Northwestern one and Michigan State one. Iowa will not beat Illinois on the road. That I would be stunned if they beat Illinois on the road. But I they do have a shot to beat them at home. So we'll see, guys. I mean, is it possible that Iowa finishes in these one, including Wisconsin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In these last 6 games, they finished 4-2. I think so, with one of them being Penn State and one of them Wisconsin. Yes, very possible. So I could do this all night, guys. But that's where things stand. Iowa still has some work to do, but they have moved themselves in the right direction with the victory over Wisconsin. And making the NCAA tournament is still definitely possible. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You guys know the drill. Your boy puts in work for you all the time. I'm just putting in the work for you guys, even on a day that I'm out in the sun as many hours as I am. But I appreciate all your guys' support. You guys know that no matter what. And I love doing this. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. In facts or feelings, because your feelings don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.